Hey guys.
Now, in preparation, I have watched The Eternals twice, and honestly, I was positively surprised. See, here's the thing. When The Eternals came first out, it got a lot of positive reviews, and then suddenly it got review bombed and people said the movie was bad and everything, and I was just confused by that fact. So I waited, but now it's out on Disney Plus, and I really liked it, like I mentioned before. There are some parts that I didn't like. For example, the CGI looked unfinished in certain areas, and also Cersei. Cersei is a very passive protagonist during the film, which doesn't make for the most interesting part, and some members were left out entirely or not focused on too much. I think the best characters in the film were honestly Sprite and Fina. They have the most in-depth thing going on, and also Icarus got a lot of interesting stuff going on in terms of character. So with Sprite, it's that she's forever young and not really taken serious as an adult by her fellow Eternals, and also not by humans, because she looks like a child. And it was something Neil Gaiman explored in his run on The Eternals, which is pretty fucking good, not gonna lie. And I mean, this film was based heavily on the Neil Gaiman run, which you can see in certain aspects, and also like Icarus' struggle between duty and love for his family was very interesting in how he struggles with it. It's quite similar, I would say, to Invincible and Omni-Man, because Omni-Man goes through a similar struggle and the career trajectory and similar. And then we of course have Fina. Fina knows a little bit more about the truth of the Eternals, and that's because she suffers from a disease similar to Alzheimer's, and it was interesting to see that kind of conflict explored on a film, because The Eternals is not a traditional Marvel film. Well, it is in some parts, but mostly it's not. What I'm trying to say is, and that's kind of a negative on first watching, is the pacing. The Eternals is a very long film and it has this weird kind of pacing, but after a while you get used to it, and you get immersed in how the story wants to be told, or how the director wants to tell the story, and then it's less of a problem. And I think on my second rewatch I didn't have a problem at all doing that. And now I'm gonna show a clip of the film if that's possible, and don't worry about getting spoiled. This is actually one of the deleted scenes from the movie, but still, I hope that kind of brings the sentiment over of what I'm trying to say in this video, and that is that this film is very good.
Babylon used to be right there. If we ever had any real home on this planet, that was it. You built a museum of human history on our spaceship. Yet you still think they're worthy of being saved, after all the terrible things we've seen them do.
Aside from that, it has the usual problem of an ensemble cast, or having an ensemble cast in your film, and that is that some characters are not focused on that much. I mentioned before that Fina and also Sprite are very interesting characters, and also Icarus, and they are on the side of getting more screen time than others. There are some where I would have wished to see a little bit more, for example Druig, or Cersei herself taking more action, and Phastos. Now, another thing that comes up is the inclusion of Dane Whitman, or rather his not inclusion. He's in the beginning of the film, and he would have made an excellent companion. Instead, for most of the part, the human stand-in for the audience is Kingo's assistant, which doesn't really make sense, when you already have an established character, an important character like Dane Whitman, the Black Knight, to not have him travel around and just introduce a random new character. There are also some deaths in the film, so Eternals are getting murked left and right, but I didn't really mind it much, because in the comics, when an Eternal gets murked, he just respawns, well, in most cases, and so that happens. But what I didn't really like, but I can live with it, it doesn't make the film worse, because I think the film is very great, is that they completely left out Zuras. Not only is Zuras the father of Thena, he's also the leader of the Eternals, and this role was kind of absorbed by Ajax. And I mean, it's good to have a positive maternal role in this weird kind of family, but it's also good to have a paternal role, and that could have been a dynamic. Or maybe they're waiting to use Zuras for the next film. I don't know for sure. There was one other Eternal that was left out of the film, but I'm not that mad about it. Even in the comics, Zuras is not the most interesting character, so I can live with it. I think casting for Ajax, such a high-profile actor like Salma Hayek, is on one hand good because it draws in an audience, and on the other side, it's really stupid because she's barely in the film, and I would have liked some more scenes with her, and also with Makkari. I showed you one of the deleted scenes with Makkari during this review, because Makkari is the prophet, so to speak, for the golden celestial, the dreaming celestial Tiamut in the comics, so quite important for the whole saga, and played a pivotal role in the Neil Gaiman run, which this film is based on, obviously, with taking several cues, like for example the Eternals not living together, they having kind of their civilian identities, living normal lives, and kind of Sprite's fault. At least in the comic book it's Sprite's fault, and character-wise Sprite received back then when she was still a he. In the comics, a similar demise at the hands of Zuras. Here it's Cersei, but although the steps are different, the result is kind of the same. In the comics, Sprite got murked for turning every Eternal into human, and here it's like she gets turned into a normal human, so she can live her life, because that's her main struggle, to not live out all the desires she has, because she's restricted to a human body. Then there's Kingo, who gets a lot of focus, and while I like the actor, I think that's not the most important part, especially because he dips out in the final. He's like, not doing that, which is understandable, fine. So, and like I said, his assistant, he's funny sometimes, but most of the time not really that needed. Or at least from a thematic standpoint, you could have exchanged him with Dane Whitman, like I said before. And the last thing that I have to say about is the end credit scene. They included a character which I'm absolutely not fond of seeing anywhere, be it on a big screen or silver screen, and that's Thanos' little brother, Star Fox. I dislike Star Fox immensely. I'm not gonna discuss why exactly. It's just that he is a really shady person and always portrayed as a hero, which I don't agree with, but that's another video. And he's played by Harry fucking Styles, of all people. Yeah, but that sums pretty much up what I have to say about the Eternals. I really like the film. It's one of the best ones I have seen, possibly the best MCU film they have done in a long time, and that's because it's more about a dysfunctional family who don't hate each other. They still love each other, it's more family, less about villains, as you know, or villains being so similar to the heroes, and it's more of a drama, it's more its own thing. That's why I want to say, and in regards to the visuals, I talked about the CGI, I'm gonna mention here, I know people complained about a lack of color, but if you know the Jack Kirby comics, there's just no way of replicating that immense scale of color and extravaganza. Not even Neil Gaiman, who had John Romita Jr. at his side to draw the book, could replicate that feeling. So everything related to the Eternals pales in terms of color to what of Jack Kirby has done, and that's something you just have to live with it. Yeah. So, okay, now I'm gonna really wrap it up and give it my rating. I give it 9 out of 10. Really, 9 out of 10 movie. Absolutely fantastic, but I want you to make your own opinion. If you share my opinion, tell me in the comments, or If you disagree with me, tell it to me in the comments. I will read them if I have the time. If you like what you do, consider subscribe or not, but it helps the channel. It helps me doing this for a couple more years and keeping my motivation up. And we see us in another video.
Now get the fuck out of my driveway.